gonna speak while you're distracted by the levels you dare to climb. A straight shooter with nostalgia I haven't felt in a long while. You make it feel like it's the arcade when we're playing pixel out until the day breaks. We'll keep breaking down, let's hope the next play. Things change, the score is rising as the screen fades. Ain't over when you stay. Now who's that saying they're the pinball wizard? He moves too slow with his grubby.
Woo! This is the Fight Guy. I'm Guy. UFC Fight Night Taira versus Park wrapped up just a day and a half ago in what turned out to be a pretty good fight night for an Apex card. I'm going to break down the entire card. I'm going to include the best highlights, the finishes, the knockouts, submissions, best moments overall. It was a pretty good fight card. We had 2 fights of the night for the first time in 6 years, so that doesn't happen often. I even said on Twitter, I said, it feels like we're going to get 2 fights of the night. 30 minutes later, we got it. I'm going to break down the entire card, and we're going to start with the very first fight on the early prelims, the Rodriguez-Souza fight. You could see here in my predictions, I was killing it. I was 9-3 in predictions. My only misses were on the main card, so we'll talk about all of that. We'll start with the very first fight on the prelims, work our way up to the main event, which was a short fight. Piera Rodriguez took on Ketlen Souza. We said Piera Rodriguez would probably win a decision 29-28 in my prediction video, which she did. She won 29-28. The takedowns is really what sealed this fight for her. It was pretty even on strikes. It was exactly how I said it would go. Both of these women tend to swing wide. They don't do a lot of straight punches. They do a lot of power shots, big hooks, big overhand punches. But what mixed it up for Piera Rodriguez on the feet is that straight punch that she had. And then she'd mix in her combinations, 1-2, 1-2-3, do what she had to do on the feet, and then she'd shoot a takedown. She was almost successful with every single takedown she shot. Ketlen Souza and her ability to accept the bottom position and just lay flat on her back is why she won't find success in the UFC. Don't get me wrong, she could be fun to watch on the feet, but Piera Rodriguez would take her down, and it was like Souza knew the takedown was coming. She would accept the takedown, and she wouldn't fight for the hand control. She wouldn't take the first intermediate steps necessary to get back on her feet. Go back and watch the fight. Tell me differently. Maybe you don't need to go back and rewatch it, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. But Souza, she would see Piera Rodriguez shoot a takedown, almost zero takedown defense. Seriously, like almost zero takedown defense. They were beautifully timed shots. I'll give her that. And she would lay flat on her back. She wouldn't shift to a hip when she was in side control. She was trying to throw little tiny punches from her back. Judges don't like that. Piera Rodriguez, easy 29-28 victory. I believe she had the first and third rounds. So like you could see here, almost 5 minutes of control time, 7 takedown attempts landed out of 10. And pretty balanced on strikes. Even landed more significant strikes on the judges' scorecard. So easy prediction there. Just like this next fight. Rafael Estevam beat Felipe Bunes, whatever you want to pronounce his name. Forgettable after Saturday night's performance. Rafael Estevam, the flyweight who missed by 4 pounds. I said even if he won this fight, I'm going to give him a little bit of shit for that. So definitely, I'm going to keep an eye out for this guy in the future. If he does miss weight again, I will never root for him, and I'll do what I can. I do have connections in the industry. Obviously, the UFC saw my tweet, saw this tweet. Can we have 2 fights of the night, please? This was at 10:37 p.m. Central Time. Go ahead, check it. I was tweeting this before anybody else announced it, so the UFC obviously saw that tweet and awarded 2 fight of the night bonuses. But yeah, I will use my pool in the future to get this guy removed from the roster if he goes and does any pussyfoot shit like that again. But we'll talk about the fight. Rafael Estevam just good enough everywhere to outclass Felipe Bunes. Yeah, he didn't finish him, but he definitely won a decision 29-28. Bunes, if I'm remembering this fight correctly, was it Bunes? Let me double check that. It might have been Danny Silva. Am I thinking? Yeah, I'm thinking of Danny Silva. Okay. Felipe Bunes, yeah, Rafael Estevam had a lot of control time in this fight, over 10 minutes. That's almost 2 full rounds. He controlled Felipe when he needed to. He was just over 50% on all his takedown attempts. He outstruck him 3-1. It was a pretty clear decision. Rafael Estevam was in the driver's seat that entire fight. Pretty much everybody saw that coming. And then the weight miss just solidified everybody's picks with Rafael. So We'll move on to the next fight. I'll add my clip from my prediction video on this one, but not only did I predict what round Austin Bashi would win, what type of finish he would win with, I predicted the exact move that he would finish John Yannis with any of his fights in Fury. I'm going to go with Austin Bashi. I'm going to go with what I do know. I'd like to see a finish from Austin Bashi here. I think we'll see like a ground and pound. I think he'll get Yannis down. He'll work him against the cage. Get him down, land some ground and pound punches. If a submission opens up, if he's able to take Yannis's back, easy rear naked choke. Austin Bashi's really good. Austin Bashi's really good at getting to the back. Like I said, this is why he was an essential part of Diego's camp was his grappling ability. I did see him with some pads on social media throughout that process, but Austin Bashi is very talented in the grappling realm. He's really talented in his ability to be able to find your back. And this rear naked choke. He's got a few submissions with this rear naked choke. It's his signature move. He likes the rear naked choke. He got a round 1 submission with the rear naked choke against John Yannis on his UFC debut. Nothing really else to break down here. John Yannis landed 2 total strikes out of 9 and just got decimated everywhere. Austin Bashi even looked good in the very few seconds in the beginning of this fight when it was on their feet. He looked very intimidating on the feet. So he looked great overall. I'm glad to see him back in the win column, especially with a finish in the first round. I thought he should have got a performance bonus for this, as well as somebody else on this card who's a veteran and who is back. We'll talk about it momentarily, but great win for Austin Bashi. We'll move on to the next fight, the 4th fight on the prelims. Nick Klein took on Andrey Pulyaev. This was over pretty quick. I think I might have said Andrey was going to win a decision. I thought Nick Klein would be a little bit more durable, but he folded pretty quick this fight. It looked like once he wasn't in control in the grappling exchanges or just in a grappling exchange whatsoever, he had no confidence in himself. Definitely, did not want to strike with Andrey. Andrey kicked him, I believe, in the liver. Did he kick him in the body here? Hurt Nick Klein and then finished him against the cage. Is that what happened here? I'm a little bit... No. Did he knock him out with a fucking head kick? What happened here? Nick Klein. I need a little bit of refresher. It's Monday morning. Nick Klein. I think he got kicked bad to the body and then whatever. He got finished very early by Andrey Pulyaev. We said Andrey would win this fight. Nick Klein looked terrible. The odds were a lot closer this fight, but Andrey Pulyaev, I know it says Nick Klein landed about 20 strikes, but Andrey ate anything Nick threw at him, and everything Andrey threw looked like it was received with twice as much power. Andrey, it says Nick Klein had some control time here. I think it was against the fence here. He was 4-7 on takedowns. I don't remember this fight too clearly. I remember being very disappointed in Nick Klein. I thought he would do a little bit better, but anytime he wasn't instigating a grappling exchange, he was getting his ass kicked. So that's what I pulled away from this fight. Nick Klein needs to be cut from the UFC. He's just not good enough to be this quality of a fighter. It looked like he had no confidence in his stand-up at all. Andrey Pulyaev, the true fighter, won this fight. Great win for him. I'll include the highlight here if it wasn't already playing behind me. We'll move on to this next fight. Easy fight to call. Rodolfo Vieira destroyed Tresean Gore. You could see here he outstruck him 2-1, and he had about 3 minutes of control time. Rodolfo Vieira didn't even need to rely on his grappling this fight. He just outclassed Tresean Gore everywhere. I told you guys Rodolfo Vieira, I thought he would use a little bit more grappling. I did say he would get a decision win over Tresean Gore. I did see him go in the distance. I wouldn't have been surprised if we saw a submission here, but he stood on his feet with confidence. You could see here, he landed plenty of shots to the body, 16 leg kicks, outstruck Tresean Gore 2-1, and threw just about the same volume, a little bit more punches. But for Rodolfo Vieira, 1 for 14 on takedown attempts. So they weren't really true takedown attempts. He was trying to snatch a single, scoop something up against the fence. Not all of those were true takedown attempts. Most of them were to mix in his striking, which I thought he did very well. I believe Rodolfo Vieira fighting at the Fight Nerds now. So we might have to look at this man a little bit differently. Put some respect on his name. That loss to Andrei Petroski is going to age like wine. I think Rodolfo Vieira is just going to get better. He made a lot of improvements since his loss to Petroski, which I thought he also looked pretty good. I know Petroski's not a kickboxer. He's mainly a grappler like Vieira. But that was a very high-level fight, like I said in my prediction and breakdown video for that fight when it happened. But Rodolfo Vieira, I think his stock's just going to continue to rise in the near future. Tresean Gore, I don't ever want to see him in the UFC again. He looks like Dory from Finding Nemo, just missed weight as well. I'm not a fan of him. Last fight on the prelims, Rinya Nakamura took on Nathan Fletcher. Rinya Nakamura finished Nathan with a liver kick early in the first round. I thought Nathan Fletcher would give him a tougher run for his money than he did. He kind of folded pretty early here, but I've never been kicked in the fucking liver before. I saw Rinya Nakamura's toe inside of Nathan Fletcher's body briefly for a half a second. He kicked him hard as fuck. The toes were inside of Nathan Fletcher. Pause. No homo. It was a great win for Rinya Nakamura. He looked real good early on. Not much else to break down this fight. You see there was less than 20 strikes thrown total pretty much. Rinya Nakamura getting Nathan Fletcher out of there with a dirty liver kick early in the first round. Also deserved a performance of the night bonus. Featured prelim bout, a liver kick, shutting Nathan Fletcher down, 10-1. All right, the only other Japanese fighter besides the main event on the first Asian headline card in UFC history, I believe they said on the broadcast. Great win for Rinya Nakamura. Not much else to say that fight. We are perfect on predictions going into the main card. And we didn't get this fight wrong either. Danny Silva took on Kevin Vallejos in a 3-round fight. It was a good fight. Danny Silva was making facial expressions at Kevin Vallejos, like taunting him every time he got hit. It was very odd. Everybody was talking about it. It was very strange to watch. Like Kevin Vallejos would get hit with like a jab and then dodge the other 2 punches, then return fire on Danny Silva, landing like a 3, 4, or 5-piece combo. That looks like it was received harder, and then Danny Silva would stick his tongue out or shake his head. It was very odd. That being said, he looked pretty composed. Kevin Vallejos, I believe, won every single round. He controlled the fight. I know it looks even on paper, but when you're watching it live per round, I think Kevin Vallejos did what he needed to do each round. Maybe you can give Danny Silva like the second round. Maybe I'd have to rewatch it. But yeah, it was a great win for Kevin Vallejos. He controlled every aspect of the fight. He looked a little bit. He looked like he was struggling with his homework a bit. But he's still without a doubt controlled every aspect of the fight. Danny Silva, I'd still like to see who he fights in the future. He's pretty good. He's definitely tough. He took a lot of shots in there. But so did Kevin Vallejos. It was a great fight. But Kevin Vallejos, I think, won every single round. We'll move on to the next fight. Neil Magny beat Dos Santos. Elizio Zaleski Dos Santos. I picked Dos Santos to win this fight. This was my first prediction I got wrong on this card. And it was a coin flip. I said it would be pretty even, but I could not pick Neil Magny coming back from 2 round 1 back-to-back knockout losses. But he proved haters wrong. He proved doubters wrong. It was nice to see Neil Magny get back in the win column, kind of solidify his near-term future in the UFC in a well-needed win over Dos Santos, in which Dos Santos was dominating him, I believe, up to that turnaround point in the second round where Neil Magny took over top position and just made Dos Santos pay with ground and pound. Dos Santos won the first round. I believe he had some control time. It was pretty balanced on the feet, from what I remember. Second round starts the same. Dos Santos getting Neil Magny down for a little bit, and then Neil Magny able to sweep him over, switch to top position, and ultimately rain down ground and pound punches to seal the deal this fight. A comeback win for Neil Magny. I don't think he was getting destroyed. All right, it was a close fight up to that point, but Dos Santos was controlling the grappling exchanges. Neil Magny also getting promoted, getting his black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in the post-fight interview, so post-fight press conference, I should say. Great win for Neil Magny to see him come back like that. I thought Dos Santos would be a little bit more durable when it got into a war like that, but I was proved Neil Magny proved me wrong for sure on that fight. So we'll move on to the next one. Women's bantamweight fight. Carol Rosa took on Nora Cornoli. I went with Nora this fight. I thought she would put on a better performance than she did. I believe this was a similar situation to the first prelim fight. Piera Rodriguez, Ketlen Souza. Whenever I said Souza was laying on her back, Souza was at least trying to move. She had her guard opened up a little bit. She went for a couple submissions, I believe a Kimura attempt. This fight was completely different. Nora Cornoli just accepted the bottom position. She did not attempt to get up whatsoever. You could see Carol Rosa landing almost 200 total strikes on Nora Cornoli with over 11 minutes of control time. Nora just laid flat on her back. I will never pick her again in a women's fight. Most likely, they do pull some of these broads they find. Some of these broads they find. So maybe I'll pick her again in the future, but not against any serious women's UFC fighters. So very disappointed in Nora's performance. I thought she would do a little bit better, maybe win a round, but Carol Rosa dominated with what I believe she also had a 10-8 round on a lot of people's scorecards on Twitter. So great win for Carol Rosa. She dominated grappling. She dominated exchanges on her feet. I believe Nora had the best chance on her feet, and Carol just took that away from her. Nothing Nora was going to do about it. She laid on her back. Moving on, in the first of 2 fights of the night, this was insane. Like I said, even on my Twitter, I said, we better get 2 fights of the night. We better get 2 fights of the night. And this was immediately after this fight, this Elvis Brenner, Esteban Ribovics fight. This was a fun one to watch. These men went to war, both landing exactly 123 punches. I did not know that. There is hardly any control time this fight. These guys stood on the feet and exchanged very hard punches. This in what was fight of the night. Until we got to the next fight, which it had to have also been fight of the night. There was no other answer. So good on the UFC for handling it this way, but I believe 3 performance bonuses should have been given out to Neil Magny, Rinya Nakamura, and who else? Austin Bashi. Or Andrey Pulyaev. Austin Bashi, I believe. Could have really used it. That would have been a good bonus. But this was a great fight. I thought Ribovics won. I gave him 2 rounds for sure. I'm sure if I went back and rewatched the fight, I may even give him all 3. I think the round 2 was close. I gave it to Brenner just to be fair. I was a little bit biased. You guys know I picked Ribovics. So, just for shits and giggles, I said it was tied going into the third. One judge was on par with me there. But like I said, if I rewatch this, I could see myself giving Ribovics all 3 rounds. These guys landed the same volume. These guys were throwing a lot of punches, and they were throwing a lot of power with these punches. Ribovics, it felt like his punches were hurting Brenner a little bit more. Now, don't get me wrong, Brenner had his moments in this fight as well, but this was just a good old-fashioned beatdown on both sides. I mean, both guys just left it all out there. Ribovics continues to have very amusing fights, quickly becoming a fan favorite. We picked him to win this fight, which he did. But Brenner is a dog. I'm excited to see who Elves Brenner fights again in the future. This was a fun fight. Ribovics could potentially get a ranked lightweight next. I mean, maybe even a Chris Duncan Ribovics fight. I mean, they both fought on this card. That you could match those up again in the future. Both lightweights. Great win for Ribovics. This was a fight of the night. There's not really much else I could say to summarize this fight. It was a war. It was a hard-fought war. Both guys left everything out there, which we don't always see in most UFC fights. Go back and watch this fight if you missed it. Elvis Brenner, Esteban Ribovics. This was one of the better fights that you can ask for, honestly. We'll move on to the co-main event. Mateusz Rębecki took on Chris Duncan, which we got wrong. We neglected Chris Duncan. We doubted Chris Duncan. We went with what we thought was the more technically savvy fighter, and we paid for it with Chris Duncan's toughness. We went with Rębecki here. He lost a unanimous decision to Chris Duncan, which, look, Rębecki was cut early in this fight, I believe over his left eye. Blood was heavily a factor at the end of the first round moving forward. I believe that's what gave Chris Duncan the second round unanimously. And then the third round, I gave it to Rębecki. If I rewatched it, I might just give it to Duncan. I thought Rębecki damaged Chris Duncan's face enough in the third round where it was going to be clear in the judges' scorecard. And I thought he did more in the first round, even though the cut was a lot of damage. So I can understand the judges giving Chris Duncan the first because of that cut. But this was a fucking fun. This was a barn burner. Both guys' face looked like something out of a horror movie. They were both cut up badly. You've probably seen a picture already on my thumbnail. But I'll play a clip here behind me while I'm talking about this. But this was just an amazing fight. Both guys landing over 100 significant strikes. I'll give Chris Duncan the extra 5. All right, Rębecki, 120 total strikes, 114 of them significant. Almost all of Chris Duncan's were significant. This was an amazing fight. If you missed this one, you have to watch this fight. This was a classic fight, a classic Apex beatdown. Yeah, Chris Duncan is if we don't see the Ribovics fight, he should get a ranked opponent next at lightweight, taking out somebody like Rębecki like that. I'm surprised this fight didn't get a doctor's stoppage. The blood was so bad. Great win for Chris Duncan. It was really fun to see. Like I said, even if I was wrong with my Rębecki pick, I want to see Chris Duncan win. I would be happy to see him win. And I thought he was going to finish Rębecki there. Very calm, very composed. He was very patient. And he just continued to pile on a lot of damage as the fight went on. So, great win for Chris Duncan. We'll move on to the main event. Tatsuro Taira beat Young Park in a very short flyweight main event fight.
Your phone ringing. Your phone ringing. Big boy, come pick up your phone. How you know pick up your phone? Your phone ringing.
Young Park took this fight on a 6-7 day notice. Very short notice. He was supposed to, was it a main event against Steve Erceg? He was supposed to fight Steve Erceg, I believe, this weekend. So he took this fight on a short notice. A submission win for Taira, giving Young Park his first loss in the first Asian main event, apparently, in the UFC. Tatsuro Taira, he looked dominant. I mean, he looked great on the feet. Young Park he just looked behind this entire fight, which was a short fight. Tatsuro Taira taking him down. He's in the driver's seat when he's in the grappling world. I mean, he looks insane. I would really like to see his jiu-jitsu go up against Alexandre Pantoja. And I understand there's levels in jiu-jitsu. Pantoja's over a decade older with a decade's more jiu-jitsu experience against the best in the world. But I would like to see Taira match up against his style. I do think that he does need another fight, maybe 2 before he gets a title shot. But, you know, we can give him Cape. You can give him Kai Kara France. You could even give him a rematch against Brandon Royval. It was a close split decision. It was his only loss. There's a lot of options for Tatsuro Taira, and depending on what he does next with those options, I believe will warrant him a potential title shot next. Young Park, unranked contender, new contender in the UFC, road to UFC finalist, I believe, getting his first loss against a number 6 ranked opponent. I'm not going to say it's over for him. All right, he still has all of his future ahead of him. It was his first loss in the UFC. Give him somebody that's not ranked. The flyweight division's pretty stacked when it comes to skill. But that, yeah, you know, that's going to do it. It was a great performance from Taira. I'm not going to take it away from Park. It was a short notice fight. It was a completely different style from what he was preparing for in Steve Erceg. So, you know, you can't take this away from Young Park, but you can't take too much away from Taira either. You know, it was supposed to be a completely different circumstance fight, a ranked opponent moving up, but he gives an opportunity to an unranked, undefeated guy. So great fight card overall for the most part. 2 fights of the night. I believe a couple performance bonuses should have been given as well. The UFC's being cheap, as always, but this is the fight guy. Thank you so much for watching. I will have a prediction video in a day or 2 breaking down the card this weekend. Roman Dolidze against somebody I forgot, but we're not there yet. I'll be there in a couple days. Thank you for watching. Give me a thumbs up. Subscribe if you're new, and I will see you very shortly. Bye-bye.